We're
Okay.
welcoming back Ms. Katie Lane from Dale Carnegie. Really appreciate it. Third session. We're super
Yes.
excited to have you, and so I'll let you take it from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin, Mr. H. Appreciate it. It's good to see you guys again. It's been a couple of weeks. I think in our second session, we talked about what we had a chance to try from that first session. So we're going to start off today doing the exact same thing. We talked about small talk 2 weeks ago, and we had a chance to practice some of those techniques and try some things. So we'll just try to hear from a couple people that have made it back from break. Have you had a chance to try anything? What did you try? Did you have some small talk with somebody? And how did it go? Again, doesn't matter if it worked awesome, just the fact that we got out there and tried. So who had a chance to try something? You can just come off mute and tell us about it. This is the interactive portion, guys.
Come on, who did some small talking? I know that I was having a conversation with Adam. Maybe it was you about the name thing that you struggled with. I want to put you on the spot here.
There you go. That's good. We like putting them on the spot.
I have, so Hildo and I were, and Nick were playing golf, and these people passed by us, and
Okay.
this one guy, he was walking by, and he's like, "It's such a beautiful day," and so Hildo and I had, and Nick, we all had some chit chat with this guy as we walked past, and so we had a little bit of small talk about the weather, which I think is a hard thing to do, but it turned out good. We did well.
You put yourself out there, and that's what we sometimes have to do to connect with people, right? So that's good. You never know. Again, back to building your network before you need it, right? Who knows? Maybe that conversation could bear fruit or pay off in the future. All right. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Anybody else have a chance to try small talk or try something different as a result of what we talked about? That's small talk.
This might sound kind of stupid, but like, I mean, I do it at the gym sometimes. Like, and I've met like tons of people. Just like people. I mean, I do it pretty much like every time I go to the gym. So
nice. What do you talk about, Sam?
Oh, I mean, I've actually like met these people like quite a while ago, and like I've come to know them really pretty well. Like all these different people, just like like how are they, how they've been doing, stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And again, the ability to put yourself out there and start to have that conversation and build those relationships is what it's all about. Let's see if we can't hear from one more person who tried something. It sounds like some of us had already been having some small talk. Maybe somebody else tried something different. What else do you guys have? Who wants to tell us about something?
You guys are usually a talkative bunch.
I was going to say, so let's shift it to this, and we'll ask this question. We'll ask to hear from one person before we officially get into our topic today. When do you think you will have a chance to try some small talk next? What's an opportunity that you might have in the near future that you can practice some of your small talk? So we'll hear from somebody that way. What do you think? Who's got one?
Breakout rooms are pretty small talk oriented.
Yeah. So maybe you take the conversation a little bit deeper or talk about some things that you might not usually with some of your counterparts. Okay, nice. Again, back to building that network. I was just on a call earlier today with some other folks throughout the Dale Carnegie network in the United States. And somebody told me that they have over 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's quite a lot. But that's just such a great way to network in business. And so we've got to have the ability that when we connect with people, whether it's via email or LinkedIn or over the phone or virtually in a meeting or even face-to-face, when we get back to that more, we have to have the ability to figure out what in the world do we talk to these people about so we can start to lay the foundational levels of trust. So we're going to take that a step further, that small talk, and talk about video presentations today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to talk through video presentations 101. So we'll see what we can come up with. There's a quote that I shared with you all a couple of weeks back, and we're going to circle back to it today because it's really important. And it was, if we present poorly what we do well, people will think that we perform poorly. So if we present poorly what we do well, people will think that we perform poorly. So we're talking about presentations actually in our topic today. So I thought this was a relevant quote to bring back together. And when we think about presentations, especially virtual ones, we know that presentations typically get a bad rap. So who's got a thought? And again, we'll be interactive today, so you can just type this in the chat, but who has a thought? What are some words that you might use to describe some of the presentations that you have to sit through? Not this one, of course, or anything Catalyst related, but other presentations that you guys have to sit through. How would you describe some of those? What would you say? You can just let us know in the chat.
In the chat.
Yeah, or you can, whoever just came off mute, go for it.
My AP Gov is pretty boring, just kind of sitting there.
Okay, so it's boring. All right.
Tedious.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's a lot of information getting thrown at me. It's not very interactive.
Okay. So a lot of like one-sidedness, right? Like they're just dumping information at you at this point, right? Yeah. Okay. Feel like being talked at without much interaction. Yeah. Any other thoughts you can put in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and tell us, what do you think about those presentations that you might have to sit through now? Anybody else? Could be good, bad, and different. Just tell us. We're trying to get a frame of reference of what are these like. Hear from one more person. You can either type it in the chat or come off mute. How would you describe the presentations that you sit through?
I don't know if you heard me, but I said tedious.
Yes, tedious. Absolutely. So what does that tedious do for you? What's a result of them being tedious? What happens?
Well, my first reaction is to pull out my phone because
For sure.
sometimes I'll just find like when it's a really slow presentation or there's no interacting, I'll try to find something else to do, like maybe privately message Mr. Hildebrand and get him distracted or something along those lines. So yeah.
Absolutely. Our first instinct is to get distracted and to stop paying full attention, right? And to not be engaged. And when we think about the types of presentations that we want to give, we probably want to give the ones that are not like that. We want to be giving the ones that we cause people to pay attention to us. So that's what we're going to talk through today. The Wall Street Journal did a study a while back, and they surveyed 200 VPs of large organizations. And they asked them to rank the presentations or describe the types of presentations that they sit through. And this is a slide, a statistic that we show often in a presentations program that we train. So what you see there on the screen are how they ranked the presentations. So about 44% said, oh my gosh, they're boring, right? They're just absolutely boring. Kind of like we said, they're tedious. People are just talking at us. 40% said that they were sleepy. So they thought, this is boring to me. This is causing me to want to go to sleep. 13% said other, so you could put a wide variety of things in that other, and only 3% said that those presentations were stimulating. Now, this was done pre-COVID, so this is more speaking about actual face-to-face presentations, but you've got to figure that the research would pull the same results, because video presentations, or the ones that we're doing in this virtual environment, are even more tricky because we have a lot more going against us in terms of how we're able to interact with one another. So just think that only 3% of these large company VPs described these presentations as stimulating. So what does that tell us? It tells us that we have a lot of room for improvement. So let's start to think about why this matters to us. Why are we even on a session today talking about this? And we are going to do this via the whiteboard. So we'll put up a whiteboard there, and there's 2 questions there for you. First one at the top is, what are we presenting online? So what are some things that you need to be able to present online? Is it maybe yourself, or a pitch for a new idea, or you're showing some type of work or paper, whatever it is? What are you presenting online? And then the second question down on the bottom is, who is your audience? So who are you working with? So if you remember where those annotation tools are, if you hover above and just grab that little pencil, it should give you a text tool. So let's get some thoughts going on the screen there, and we'll try to come up with just a frame of reference for what are some things that we're presenting online, and then also who is our audience. So we'll spend a couple of minutes doing that there. So for me, I am presenting training online. And a lot of my audience is large corporate clients. Ooh, presenting homework online. Okay, classmates might be your audience. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to move it so it's not on top of yours, but
That's okay. I can still see it. Don't worry about it. All right, so assignments still, right? Assignments, sounds like a lot of assignments, classmates and teacher. So those are 2 very different audiences, right?
Hey, Katie, also, let me say real quick, if someone in your computers won't let you annotate, you can private message me and I'll annotate for you.
Awesome, thank you. Are there permissions we need to set, or is it just kind of depending on people's Zoom?
It's just some computers in Zoom, they
Got it.
don't speak with each other very well.
Lovely. All right, some of us are presenting research or new information. All right, looks like lots of classmates and teachers are showing up as our audience. We'll give it about 30 more seconds and see what else we can come up with there. Pitches, absolutely, we just talked about that, and those would probably be very important ones. Who's the audience when we're pitching something? Let's see, what else? Could be parents who are our audience. Yeah, investors. Stakes are high with that stuff. Absolutely. Give it about 20 more seconds, see if we've got any other different ones up here that we can get. And again, probably earlier this year, assignments would not have made that list because we were doing that face-to-face. And most of this stuff probably wouldn't have made that list. I know for me, pre-COVID, I probably did only about 10% of our training online. Now it's completely flip-flopped and we're about 90% online. All right, so it looks like we've got a couple of different audiences and we've got some different things that we're presenting online. We're gonna circle back to both of these ideas, both the difference in what we're presenting online and also the difference in the audience, and determine how that's going to impact our video presentations. But let's again get some collaboration going, and we'll talk about that in our presentation tactics in just a couple of minutes. But let's go ahead and start to think about what is the best presentation we've ever sat through. Think about that for a moment. Get that in your head. The presentation where maybe it was a year ago, a couple years ago, maybe it was 2 months ago, where you thought, wow, the time flew like that, and it was really awesome. Like, I didn't even feel like I was sitting through, it didn't feel like it was 2 hours long or 3 hours long. So think about that for a moment. And then let me turn my annotation off here. Go ahead and then grab your phone. Yes, we're going to ask you to grab your phone, and we're going to do an electronic poll here. So hopefully you all have your phone close to you. But if you follow the instructions there on the screen and just open up a blank text message and to the number 22333, you are going to text Katie Lane 120. And I'm going to do the same thing also just to make sure that it works. So go ahead and send that Katie Lane 120 to the number 22333, and it should give you a quick message back here in just a moment to tell you that you are entered into a poll. So we'll do that, and then we're going to screen share for what we call our poll everywhere. And let me go ahead and share that with you, and the instructions will come back. But let's go ahead and answer the question via text message of what makes a presentation good? What makes a presentation good? You can just type that in the text. And once we get the responses going, they should start to populate up here on the screen. So what makes a presentation good?
I didn't get a text back from
You know, I didn't either.
Yeah.
That's
Same.
weird. It might not be working today. Let's try this. Try it. We'll give it one more sec here. Well, maybe it's not working today, so we will not use that tool. But what we can do is just go ahead and type in the chat, what makes a presentation good in your mind? Again, thinking about what's that presentation that you were thinking of. What makes a presentation good in your mind? Just answer in the chat there. All right, it might have a little bit of humor, engaging and relatable. Yep. Humor is good if it's appropriate for the audience and the message. Okay, high energy. Oh, calling out Mr. H was giving a great presentation, obviously, as always. He was speaking loud and confidently. Yeah, our voice. Ooh, the topic is interesting, definitely to us. Quick and to the point. They don't go on and on and on. Yeah, they use some visuals. They make connection with the audience, all right, including pictures. Yeah, so we're getting some real positive things in here in terms of what makes a presentation good in our mind. And these are all really great things that we might get a chance to try in terms of our presentations as well. Making sure it's relevant to you. Yes, interactive with the audience. So we're seeing a lot of similarities in terms of what we think makes a presentation good. But if you think back to that Wall Street Journal study and you think that, gosh, almost 84% are considered either boring or sleepy, there's obviously a lot of presentations that are poor or that we don't like. So let's go ahead and now think about what are some things that we should not be doing during presentations. And we can go ahead and just come off of mute if you've got an idea. We'll get a little bit interactive here and hear from you all. What's something that maybe you've seen somebody do in a presentation that's made it like boring or sleepy, or you've thought, gosh, I will never try that in a presentation? Don't tell us who it was or what the presentation was. You don't need to call anybody out. But what are some things that you've seen on video presentations that you would say, nope, not going to go there? Who's got a thought?
People like mumbling and sounding like they're not interested in the topic.
Yeah. So if the presenter does not seem energetic and engaged, right? I was just actually listening on a call, Dale Carnegie, like a global call with trainers throughout the world. And the woman running the call, she's a phenomenal woman. It sounded like she was getting ready to go to sleep the entire time she was talking. And I thought, like, this is just not engaging at all. You know, she had a very short amount of time. So yeah, if people are mumbling or don't have a lot of high energy, yeah, that can be tough. All right. Thanks, Danica. Who else? What's one bad presentation, something that you've seen that we think, gosh, I got to make sure to not do that? What else would you say?
If they're not prepared and like they have no idea what they're doing.
It's like, so I'm going to come talk to you guys about video presentations or virtual presentations today. So yeah, That's what we're going to do today, right? And they don't have anything prepared. They obviously have not done their homework. They haven't considered the topic or the audience even, right? Okay. Yeah, that would definitely be one. Thanks, Abby. I think that was you who said that. Let's hear from at least 2 more people. Those ones that are like really rough that we think, I hope that never happens to me on a presentation. What else would you say?
Talking in like a monotone voice.
If they say all the words the exact same the entire time, it gets very, very boring. Yeah, back to that energy, right? And that enthusiasm or that inflection. Okay, thanks. Let's hear from one more person before we move on. What else would you say makes a presentation challenging or bad?
You know, your poll's working now.
Of course it is when we don't need it. That's all right. We're done with it. We've moved it on. We've adapted. We're on the fly. Thank you. We don't need that anymore. But AJ, since you just came off mute, what would you say makes a presentation bad?
Oh, well, I think I did this in Mr. Hilderman's class last year in marketing. I turn my back sometimes, like when your back's facing people, and if you have to especially if you're already talking like kind of quietly, but Mr. Hildebrand knows I like scream and like yell out in class. But like if you're already kind of talking at a medium level, actually it doesn't matter if your back's ever turned during the presentation and you're not like looking at people in the eyes and looking across the room and stuff.
Yeah.
It can be you get disengaged really easily, or the people listening do.
Yeah, absolutely. It almost goes so far as to show the audience that you really don't care about them. It's kind of like, well, it's just about me up here, or it's just about me in front of the group. I don't really care who's out there. Yeah, that's a great best practice, is we should always try to make, genuine connections through eye contact with people. Yeah. So that's a little bit about kind of the presentations we're giving, who our audience is, what are some things we think we should be doing, what are some things we think we should not be doing. We're going to look at some best practices, and then we're going to get a chance to practice a couple of things on our session today. We actually train a 2-day presentations program here at our office that we call high impact presentations. We've adapted it to the virtual world, so we do it both face-to-face and virtually. But we have business folks from throughout the world go through this 2-day experience where they get videotaped 7 times in the 2 days up on their feet in front of a group of people, or sitting on webcam in front of the audience. And immediately they go and they look at that video of themselves with a coach, one of us, and they start to look at what are some things that they're doing well as what are some things that they're looking to improve upon. And it's really eye-opening, because a lot of times people, when they plan a presentation, the first thing they do is they get all their stuff together, like their slides or their papers or all their content. And what we found after years of research here at Dale Carnegie is that there's so much more that goes into a presentation. And so we say that there's really 3 things that go into making a presentation impactful. It's the delivery. So it's how you come across in your message. Things like, are you energetic? Are you making that eye contact? Are you getting the audience involved? It's your delivery. It's your content. So that's exactly what you're talking about, right? The slides or the knowledge or the different components that you're giving to people. And then it's the structure. So we've got different ways that we could approach presentations to motivate people. Or we might run a Q&A session differently than an informational session or a pitch. So those 3 things, the delivery, the content, and the structure, all go into that equation of making a presentation impactful. So we'll ask you guys this, and you can just type it in the chat. When you go to plan a presentation, whether it's a pitch or you're doing some homework or an assignment, which would you say out of those 3 do you focus most of your time and energy on in preparation? Is it delivery? Is it content? Or is it structure? Just type that in the chat there. Where do you think you spend the most focus on in terms of your preparation? Delivery, content, or structure? All right, content. So you all are no different than many of the business professionals that we work with. Without fail, we find that most people right off the bat say content. right? I have to know. I got to put my slides together. I got to put my information together. That's what these people are here for. What we find is that when you put a little bit of extra focus on especially the delivery piece, that makes the presentation a lot more impactful. So if you as students can get that delivery piece down and that structure down, you've already got the content. It's the meat of the presentation. You're going to have a great impact. And when we think about the delivery and the structure, there's a lot of things that we have to consider that goes into that. So I'll just ask you all, excuse me, my phone's ringing. I'll ask you all a quick question here. Just anybody, when you woke up this morning, was one of your first thoughts, gosh, you know, I'm really looking forward to Katie joining us again at 1 o'clock. Like, I hope she got a good night's rest, and I hope she's having a really great Friday and is energetic and like ready to really interact with us this afternoon. Just give us a hand raise if that was one of your thoughts today. Right? Yeah, usually not. So don't feel bad, and you're not making me feel bad. We ask this question a lot because what we typically find is that people are so focused on themselves, they're not thinking about other people. And we use this question to start people thinking about the idea of we have to really consider who our audience is. And we have to remember that it's not always about us in terms of what we're presenting. It's about our audience. So if I were giving this presentation to a group of C-level executives, there would probably be some very different pictures and some very different examples versus when I'm working with you all. Or if I was talking to people who are interested in sales and coming across better virtually in their sales presentations. My examples, and again, my slides, and maybe even my delivery and the activities that we do would be very different. So we always challenge people to remember that it's not about me, it's about the audience. And so when you're going to do that next pitch or to show that assignment, we asked that question earlier on that first slide, who is my audience? So our messages can get tailored differently depending on who the audience is. So we're going to get some practice with how this plays out here in just a couple of minutes. But first, we're going to talk about two critical components of presentations, whether or not they're face-to-face or they're virtual. If you've ever flown on an airplane, which I'm betting most of you have, you might know that the two most dangerous parts of flying on an airplane are both the takeoff and then the landing. And that's a nice analogy for where we ourselves can get into trouble in terms of presentations. The takeoff is kind of like the opening, and the landing is kind of like how you close your presentation out. So we think about that airplane ride, and you'll see a picture of an airplane here. That takeoff is where a lot of things can go wrong. Same with when we open a presentation or kick it off. And that landing is also where we've got a lot of danger or a lot of opportunity to make sure that we're doing things well. You know, when we think about getting ready to begin, and especially in virtual presentations, there's usually a lag time when we first get into a room of like that awkward chit chat or figuring out what to do with people. We've got just a couple of critical seconds to make sure we're creating that positive first impressions for our audience. The same with closings. That's the lasting impression that you leave your audience with. It's like that last message that you leave them. So we're going to look at openings and closings here in just a moment, and then we're going to get a chance to practice actually coming up with some openings and closings for different topics. So when you think about openings, there's a couple of key points when you think about openings. One, they get the favorable attention of the audience. It draws the audience in. They should lead naturally into a presentation. So your opening should have something to do with your presentation. It should not be a completely random picture on a slide that has absolutely nothing to do with your presentation. Make sure it has something to do. It builds goodwill with your audience, and then it creates points of agreement. So curious to hear from you all, and we'll ask some people to come off of mute. What are some ways that you have seen people open presentations that have maybe done one of these things that you see here on the screen? What are some ways that you've seen either face-to-face or video presentations that have worked well? Yeah, Anthony, go for it.
Well, one thing that people usually do in presentations, they first get the audience hooked on what they're saying. Maybe it's like writing an essay. Basically, we start off with the hook, thinking of random situation or something like that, and that kind of transitions eventually into their idea. That's how people usually get attention, because it's like, hey, this can apply to real life, man. I should listen.
Yeah. So what's a hook that you've seen somebody use? Can you give us a specific hook that might work?
So I remember there was this one like class presentation we had on like, I believe on like on like our throw and stuff. And this one guy used this hook, basically like, have you ever tried, basically, have you ever thought that if your food, like, there's a certain way you could eat that would both help or hurt you? Basically, he used that hook to get us interested.
So he asked the group a question, right?
Yes.
Which is one way to open a presentation. Absolutely. What are some other ways that we've seen that have been meaningful or engaging that might get the attention or lead into the presentation? You can just come off mute and tell us about some of the things that you've either heard or seen. Who else has one?
I once was a part of an audience for a presentation where they started it off with a game of 2 truths and a lie.
Yeah, we refer to that as an icebreaker, right? It's something that gets the group involved. It gets them warmed up, gets them actually doing something, right? Yeah, so that's one way you could have an icebreaker. Let's see if we can't get one more example. Back to those presentations that you said, oh, those ones were really good. What would you say? What did they do to open the presentation that made it good?
They usually started with like a game or like an activity.
Yeah.
Got you, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll listen to the rest of the stuff. It kept you moving.
Hey, and that's all we're asking for as presenters, right? For our audience to be like, okay, I'll stick around for a little bit, right? So we do some type of game or an activity. Again, it could be an icebreaker or something to get the group involved, right? If you think back to how we opened our session today, we started off really with a quote, right? So that's one way you can open. You can open by asking a question. You could give a statistic or show a picture or tell a story. Anything to avoid the really awkward, like, well, hey, I guess we're going to go ahead and get started now. And today we're going to talk about virtual presentations. Yep, that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go ahead and get started, right? Because that's not an impactful way to begin something. So we want to make sure that we're focused on those openings. The other side where we can get ourselves into trouble are those closings. So thinking about those closings, we want to make sure that we're leaving a lasting impression with people. We might need to persuade people to do something in a logical way, or maybe we inspire them to do something. If you think about how we ended one of our sessions a couple of weeks ago, we talked about what we're going to do differently as a result of being together. Anybody else heard of any other good ways to close a presentation? One that sticks out in your mind that you can think of right now?
I like when they ask, like, what did you learn, or what did you take away, or
yeah.
How did this impact your life, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So they ask a follow-up question, right, to determine the impact. And that's another great way for us as presenters to determine if our presentation was good and if it was meaningful, is to say, hey, we're going to re-engage this audience and ask a question. Some of those openings we talked about, a statistic, a story, a quote, a picture, all of those could very well be used as closings as well. So we're going to get a little bit of practice with this, like I said, and I'm going to put something up here on the screen for you. So we have got 4 topics on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we've got 4 different groups of audience. So go ahead and maybe take a picture of those with your phone if you want. We're going to get into breakout groups in just a moment. And in those breakout groups, you guys are going to have about 5 minutes to come up with. You choose first, what is your topic? And second, who is your audience? And your task is going to be to come up with an opening and a closing. So making sure that you're coming up with a way to engage your specific audience right off the bat with your opening about your topic, and then your closing is also going to be a way to wrap it up. So really awesome that you've got, if you want to Google some statistics on some of these things, or try to find a quote, or tell a personal story. After the breakouts, we're going to come back and we're going to hear from each group. We're going to hear one person do the opening and one person do the closing. So again, you'll get into your groups. You get to choose as a group what's your topic and who's your audience. And you're going to develop an opening and a closing specific to your topic and relevant to your audience. And when we come back, we're going to hear from you on your opening and your closing. And we as a group are going to determine how we thought it was and if it was relevant and we thought it would hook that audience and also leave a good lasting impression. So who's got a question before we get into our breakout groups to start to work on these? We good? All right, Mr. H, are we good with breakouts?
Yeah, do you have a number of participants who you think in each room?
Yeah, let's put 4 people in a group.
Okay.
Yep, so 4 people will work together. You'll choose one person to give the opening, one person to give the closing.
Awesome. And before we go into the rooms, make sure you are deciding, looking at that list, you're either going to choose from one of the topics, and make sure you also choose one of the audiences.
You got it. So as a group, you'll choose a topic and an audience.
And we'll give you 5 minutes, right?
Yep, you bet.